great little jokes here, but we're going to get serious because the Canadian Premier League making an announcement over the weekend, and we're going to get to the games shortly. But I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are nervous when they hear this kind of information. And there are other people who have been following sports leagues for a very long time and think, okay, this is par for the course and it's fine and it'll get better. But here's the news. Canadian soccer business has purchased York United. Obviously, the expectation is to transfer the club to new ownership, but this is something they felt they needed to do. So they have taken over control of York United. And I wonder, Wheels, is this concerning for the league, or do you see a silver lining in this news?
I wouldn't be concerned by this because I don't think that the comparable is there. And I've seen it put out there comparing it to the FC Edmonton situation. Look, first and foremost, the Baldassarra family believing in the Canadian Premier League, coming out and being one of the inaugural ownership groups of the Canadian Premier League should be applauded. But at some point, if you aren't committed to the project, if it's better off in someone else's hands to take a club forward, then so be it. And I think that this is the time and place where the CSB, the owners of the Canadian Premier League, believe there's value in this club. That's why they went on and purchased it, not taking operating control like they did in FC Edmonton. There's reported interest in purchasing this club already. And it's about making sure that it's in the right hands and that going forward, that the club lands in a place where it can thrive and grow and be part of a successful Canadian Premier League. I always went into the CPL, Andy, just this entire project, thinking that there was going to be bumps in the road. Like, it's not linear. Nothing ends up being straightforward. Sometimes you need to take a step back before you take a step forward. And there's something there. There's something about the GTA, just in terms of the players that are developing, the people that want a chance, the fandom of the sport. It just has to be done in the right way. Jordan played there, called it home for a number of years. I don't think York Lions Stadium is an ideal place. York University is a commuter school. It's during the summer months. It's like the last stop on the subway. Like, I want to see it built around a community where it's easily accessible, creates one of those outstanding environments that we see across this league and something that a community can really rally around. So I think that there's a work in progress here. So I'm not setting off the alarm bells whatsoever. This league is in a position to grow. And I think that the CSB and having a commissioner now that's willing to make these big decisions on behalf of the league, some difficult decisions that need to be made, I think it's showing true leadership. And Mark Noonan has experience in growing and building leagues, in his past experience as well. So I think that this is just kind of like a bump along the way. And I think there's real value in that club. And it's going to be fascinating to see which owner and from where lands this absolute gem in a league with all kinds of potential.
Well, you're right. I had a chance to sit down with Mark Noonan. He talked about his time with Major League Soccer and how he had to write that press release about going from 12 teams to 10. When I had this conversation, Ollie, the other day when the news broke about CSB taking over York United with my husband John Conway, who was part of the earlier years of MLS, he was with the San Jose Earthquakes when they were told that they were folding, and they eventually became the Houston Dynamo. And we know all the changes that happened in Major League Soccer. So when he heard this news, he went, yeah, it's going to happen. This is literally what's going to happen in leagues. I think where you brought it up, though, Wheels, and your thoughts too on this, Ollie, right away, I think a lot of people's minds did go to the FC Eddies, like the Edmonton last year. This was a team where they are now out of the CPL, but there was a difference there as well, Ollie, in how things were handled with Edmonton versus right now with York.
Yeah, well, Edmonton, as my understanding of it was that the CSB never actually bought that club back. No. They were operating it on behalf of the FATs and trying to sell it for them, but the ownership was never actually transferred. So this is a different situation. They have complete control of York United now and the ability to do that deal on their terms with a potential new ownership group. So it is a different situation in that regards. I don't know if this is a good or a bad situation or thing that's happened yet, because I think we have to wait and see and find out. And look, I think what we do know right now is that York United hasn't really worked to this point. The original idea of York 9 representing 9 regions, building a stadium somewhere in York region, that did not work. It did not take hold. I don't think it really connected with quite a disparate set of communities. Since then, there's been more of an attempt, I think, to make it more of a Toronto club. Not sure that's really clicked either. And I agree with Wheels that this club needs to find its community and find its home and build its identity around that. And I hope that's what a new owner can do. And we'll find out. Something like this, though, doesn't really worry me kind of bigger picture in terms of the league and its viability. I think you were always going to have a situation, as you just described with MLS, Andy, where in the early years of any new league, you're not going to get 100% hit rate of getting every single brand new club right? There are some that aren't going to work. There are some that aren't going to click as you would have hoped. And for me, that is not the thing to worry about. It's your ability to then correct course on those clubs, and with clubs 9, 10, 11, and 12 to learn from those mistakes and start getting it right in the clubs that you bring into the league now. So I think that ultimately is where, the CPL is going to succeed or fail and, survive in the longer term is Mark Noonan as commissioner, his ability and a very new front office that's been put in place over the past year, their ability now to take the lessons from the first few years to figure out what's worked, what hasn't, and to use those things to inform how they move forwards. And that's what I'm hopeful about. I think, this commissioner is saying all the right things in that regards, that he's learned those lessons and is taking the league forward in the right way.
Jordan, how you feeling though?
Oh, mixed emotions all around, truthfully. But I will say the silver lining is for me that shout out to Mike Baldassarra, because he would come into the locker room before, after games all hyped, right? So much energy. But for me, someone admitting that you've taken the club as far as you're willing to take it and maybe you're not invested in the future, for me, it's also just being aware. Like, I know it's not an ideal situation. You would love someone who started a club, you see it progress, but just knowing like, hey, this is maybe as far as I can take it, or I'm not fully invested in it. And then someone else takes over and gives it some new life. That is okay. I'm not so worried about like York folding. I'm more invested in where it's going in terms of who picks it up next. Because for me, and the way that I transitioned to come home and just the GTA, and I'm so biased, but there's also proof in the pudding, the talent and like the fan base that you have in the GTA. I look at Forge. I'm like also in Hamilton. It's probably not the most illustrious place to be, but you can also have a stadium filled.
Easy there.
He
or
speaks
kids
the
coming
truth.
in. But look, it's not. But York, maybe I totally agree with York Lions Stadium. You have to share a stadium. It's not the most ideal situation. But just the GTA, like wherever you land that club, I think the biggest thing for me moving forward is connecting with the fans and the kids, because that's something that the CPL has that, quite frankly, MLS doesn't really do or can't really do in the same way. There's not, at the end of a game, I could go into the stadium, I could go into talk to fans, I could sign autographs, I could take pictures. You can't really do that the same way in the MLS. Like you can, but you can't be so engaged. I think that's the area where York has been missing. And for my time there, that was what I enjoyed the most, is connecting with the fans. I even look at feeder clubs. Like you're looking at Alliance being a feeder club to York. How is that not Vaughn? How is that not getting the best talent going to York? So I think the new ownership, they really need to find a balance of knowing an area and knowing what needs to be done to really get this club going in the right direction. Because for me, it has all the tools. You're in the GTA. You're so close to Toronto. It's such an attractive place to be. And I just hope whoever the new ownership is has that mindset and knows how to push the club forward.
They just need a home. Like that's going to be the most interesting thing to me, is like which direction they take this. We were all, aware of reports about a potential stadium being built at Woodbine. Where does that situation stand? Are they better off going elsewhere and developing their own following within their own community? And it can work in Toronto. I know that the shadow cast by Toronto FC is a big one, but I kind of look at what the Toronto Wolfpack had at Lampard Stadium. Like they were playing in rugby league, which, all the other teams were playing in the UK, except this Toronto club just did so well. Because it was marketed well. It became an it thing to do. It was a little bit of a party scene. They had great crowds, a great atmosphere. And I think we all miss it since the team has left. So it can be done in the Toronto market. It just needs to be done the right way. Or is it better off going outside? We'll see which direction that they think they should take it. But Andy, I think the model that Rob Friend and the group have pursued in Vancouver, I think that's the way to go. You link up with the community. They linked up with Langley, and they built a stadium relatively inexpensive compared to what construction costs are, buying something brand new in the land. And it serves multi-purpose use. It serves a professional club as well as the community. I mean, it seems to be an efficient way forward. And if there is a community willing to partner up with an ownership group, then there's some really big opportunities, not just in the GTA, but extend that across the country as well.
Yeah. And I mean, that'll be a conversation for another day, because I know a lot of people from the beginning have thought but it's part of the evolution. And the bigger conversation there, Jordan, when it comes to accessibility, is a proper venue, right? So you want it to be conducive to CPL. You also don't want to be playing in these cavernous big stadiums, which typically maybe are for football use. And we get it, right? I mean, MLS still has challenges as well when it comes to that, right? But next step, of course, is that the venues, the accessibility to those venues. We still have these conversations even in the biggest leagues too. Public transportation and being able to get there. All these conversations still happen. That I would like to think will also be the next step as well for CPL. When these new teams come on in or new ownership comes on in, it's about where your home is, because that is very important to your point when it comes to the fan base and growing it.
Well, and just one last, sorry, Andy, just one that's, I hope that the players and the coaching staff and the people working for that club, it was made very clear that none of their livelihoods are being affected by this, because there is an owner. It's just the club it's the CSB that's overseeing it right now. So hopefully they're given all the resources they need to go out and have a successful season as well. I think that that's the case. And Jordan, that has to be the most important thing for a player, just knowing that there is going to be some kind of stability around you.
Yeah, and it's a transition. It's a transition season, and last thing I would also want to say about the situation with York is I think the bare bones of this club has every right to have like culture bearers or identity, but I think it's been lacking. And I can call this out because I've been a part of the establishment for 2 years. That's something that we want more of. You see it in certain clubs. You're seeing with Halifax. Yeah, I know they have 5,000, 6,000 fans coming every game, but you even see it with Fords. You see it with certain clubs throughout the league. That's how you're going to build up the CPL, is really having like club bears and culture and having an identity. And that kind of starts from front office and all the way down. Everyone, CEO, managers, whoever it is, they have to bleed for that club and they have to know what that area is about. And so that's why I'm so prideful about York and that region, because even though I didn't grow up in New York, I grew up in Mississauga, and this is like the closest thing to it. 45-minute drive, and that's a club that you would like bleed for. So I just hope whoever comes in knows from the top straight down, you have to have that sense of passion, family that really keeps things going.
I'd argue as well, Jordan, that some of those clubs already exist in this country. Like I would look at Vaughan Soccer Club as a great example of that. And I don't know what the feasibility of getting all those clubs into the professional game and potentially bringing them in to the CPL. But that is a club with a massive membership, dominates its community, has a track record of developing professional players that would be the envy of a lot of professional clubs around the world. Like, these are things I'd love to see the CPL at least explore and try and tap into as well.
And players want to play here, play in their own backyard. Oftentimes, if they have a chance to do so, it helps financially as well.